I'm a paper guy too, but I'm testing this.
We're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. Could all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Molly, if you could help me with the roll call, please.
Sure thing. Alderperson Henry. Here. Alderperson Schaefer.
Here.
Alderperson Valdy.
Here.
Alderperson Grimmer.
Here.
Alderperson Price.
Here.
Alderperson Eicher.
Here.
Alderperson Dean is excused. Mayor Atwell.
Present.
And then Administrator Hafner.
Here.
Great, thank you very much. Mayor, microphone on, please. Okay, we are going to roll into number 4, public hearing. Public hearing number 1. Amended text of Chapter 7, Land Use Element of the City of Delafield 2030 Comprehensive Plan and related maps. Amendments to Map 7-4, Master Land Use Plan Map. Owner DLC 0781989001 and DLC 0781989003. Owner JAG2 LLC. Owner DLC 0781990003. Owner JAG 1605 LLC. Applicant City of Delafield matter. Amend the land use category from agricultural to medium density as recommended by the Economic Development Land Use Group. Is there anyone that would like to speak to public hearing number 1? Anyone that would like to speak to public hearing number 1? Nope. All right, seeing none, public hearing number 1 is now closed. We'll move on to number 5, special order of business. 5A, Friends of the Library, update from the Friends of the Library regarding plans for the outdoor library garden area. Who'd like to come up and speak about that?
And good evening. My name is Marty Wiley, 493 Lillian Court, Delafield. I'm here today as the Secretary of Friends of the Delafield Library, and I'm accompanied by the other Friends board members here and also with our library director, Stephanie Ramirez. So we have come to speak to you about some changes that are needed in the library garden area, and we've had to reach some decisions on what the Friends of the Library plan to do. Just to give you a little history on how we became involved, in 2009, when the third referendum was adopted by the city, it built a library that was smaller than the grand plan, which wasn't getting passed. And at that point, the Friends became involved in creating a footprint that would preserve that area for expansion. And it was suggested that we create a library garden. Ideally, we had $75,000 as a very generous donation from a citizen and her husband of Delafield, Don and Bobby Krieger-Chentis. So they had requested that money be used by the Friends of the Library for one of the projects that we had named. The Friends of the Library added, at that time, $4,000 to that to come up with a total of $8,000. The area that we were talking about was completed in August of 2012. And you see it as you come into your building. People that visit the library and use the parking lot in back have seen it in its splendor. When it was finished, it is 4 large raised bed planters. It is berms, it is umbrellas, it is seating areas, and it is a stage with swings. It was used by the libraries a lot for their programs. It was really an addition to the city and to the library at the cost of the Friends of the Delafield Library. That's the history. That brings us to the present. Since 2013, the Friends have had to spend over $26,000 in repair and maintenance on the garden areas. The city had given us a contractor that initially put in everything, but we have had 3 landscapers who have viewed the work as it is now and have said it was very poorly built with poor materials, and it's just not standing the test of time. The decision that we then are faced with is, do we continue to put money into this money pit and still have it be functional, or do we find and define another way that the garden area could be used? We spoke to DPW, we talked to Tom Hafner, we talked to Stephanie, and they're aware of the fact that this is money that in our eyes has just going down the drain. And so we've come up with a plan. The library is very much in line with it too, of taking those planters out. They're kind of beyond repair. And then having it leveled, reseeded, putting in lots of topsoil so we're sure that we get good quality grass growing in there. And then once again, we would leave in the umbrellas, we would leave in the cement blocks that are sitting area that's underneath that. We would leave in the benches. We would have to do some work on the area where the sign is as you come into the building, because that's kind of crumbling. And the landscapers have felt that they can use some of the blocks taken from the planters to repair and build up that area. So that's a bonus too. We just really feel that that is for us the most cost-effective solution, and a way that instead of spending $26,000, we can use that money for library programs directly. We're anxious for work to begin this fall to dismantle the planters, have the area seeded, and it will be up and running late fall, early spring. That way, the City Hall and the library is once again going to have a beautiful, functional area that can be viewed in years to come, and it will save the area for future expansion without putting a lot of extra money into that. Are there any questions?
I have one. I don't remember. So is there actually a space that's delineated that says this is the library space? I know there was a lot of interesting negotiations that went on back then, but is there actually an area where there's like an edge, like, okay, library doesn't go past here, now this is the City Hall area? How does that work out there?
Well, it's funny because this was done under Terry Zignago, who was director of the library at the time. And as friends, we believe that she has the original defined plan. We haven't been able to find exactly what she may have or may not have, but what we understand is that the city is responsible for what is directly outside the building. You can correct me if I'm wrong on that. So if there's something that is right next to the building, that's the city. Beyond that, the garden is defined as the berms that go out to the parking lot, the entrance into the library and the city in the back. So basically, it's pretty much the garden area. When talking to DPW, they are willing to take on the mowing as part of the city's grass cutting, so it would not be an additional expense.
Okay. The purpose of the question is more to say that a good plan shouldn't worry about plus or minus 18 feet or 6 inches or something.
Yeah.
So as far as regrading.
Yeah, my recollection is Terry just brought a plan to the council and said we would like to use this space for this plan, and the council approved that, subject to the Friends being responsible for the costs and for the cost of maintenance of it. And so I think that's all that defines it, is the plan of what you see out there now.
I just have one question. What about the sign? Where is that going to go?
That should stay
The
there, right?
sign,
The sign, the Delafield Public Library
that
sign.
stays there as
Okay,
far as
so
I know.
that's because isn't there a brick raised planter? Is that going to be on a berm, or is that going to remain, that planter?
That will remain, it
Okay.
will be.
Good.
It will be fixed up, because I guess it's very close to an underground tank or something
Yep.
too, so it's kind of tricky to work in that area. But no, that berm itself is
Okay.
going to be fixed up and
Okay, good.
weeded.
Yeah, I got the thistle.
Did you?
Yeah, lots of them.
We have
Come on
a
up. Come on
volunteer
up.
weeder.
Come on up. You can come up and speak. Char?
I wasn't. I'm Charlotte Hall, 1024 Nagawicka Street in the city of Delafield. I was originally on the library board when we went through this. Tim knows that, and Tom, I know, knows that. I just want to make sure there's no misunderstanding here. What was that there was extra land set aside for library expansion down the road. And this goes back to Ed McAleer's term, that in fact, we actually changed the exit of the parking lot to make sure, and Tim's nodding,
Yeah,
thank you.
I remember.
I'm not the only one that remembers this. I don't want this to get lost because, we're growing, our city's growing. We still hope for a larger library down the road, so we don't want to lose that piece. But it was there, but we wanted to make it beautiful for the city to utilize, for the library to utilize, for all of their customers, and but that is set aside. A footprint was made for library expansion, and I believe Mayor McAleer at the time told us that if we came up with $1 million, he felt he could make that happen. We're still working, ladies and
Buy
gentlemen.
that lottery ticket.
There you go. I'm sorry, Marty.
That's okay.
I just want to make sure.
Yeah, thanks for coming up.
Everything okay?
Yep, all
Yeah,
good.
Thank you. Good luck.
Great, thank you for
Thank
sharing that
you.
with us.
Thank you for your generous time and efforts with our library. Much appreciated.
Okay, we will move on to number 6, approval of minutes of May 16th.
Move to approve May 16th minutes.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. All right, now we're on to number 7, City of Delafield citizens' comments. This is for anything on the remainder of the agenda. Would anybody like to come up and speak to anything on the remainder of the agenda? No? Okay. Anybody else? Seeing none? Citizens' comments are now closed. Move on to number 8, the consent agenda. Do I have a motion for the consent agenda, or anybody want something pulled?
I'll just want 8A to just have a comment on. Other than that, I'll approve the consent agenda minus 8A.
Is
I'll
there a
second.
second?
I'll second.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Okay, 8A.
I just want to note that, so I'm assuming that this item 8A for the termination of the conditional use permit for the Heartland Sportsman's Club closes the chapter on outdoor shooting on that property.
It does,
Okay.
yes.
That's all I wanted to highlight, because that's been a long saga. So with that, I'll make a motion to approve item 8A.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Woo-hoo. Okay, we'll move on to 9, board committees and commission reports, licenses. A1, discussion and possible action regarding granting a 2022-2023 alcohol beverage retail license with the insurance pending any remaining background checks and debt clearance. Is there a list in there we need to approve?
Yes.
I've had a motion to approve the list.
I'll move to approve.
Great.
I will second.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. We'll move on to 9A2, discussion and possible action regarding the 2022-2023 cigarette and tobacco products retail licenses.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Okay, last but not least, 9A3, discussion and possible action regarding ordinance number 794, an ordinance repealing and recreating section 4-4, parentheses 3 of the City of Delafield Municipal Code relating to temporary Class B fermented malt beverage licenses and temporary Class B wine licenses as authorized by Wisconsin 125.26 parentheses 6 and 125.51 parentheses 10. Molly, do you have anything on this, or?
Yeah, in the packet, the kind of summary of the discussions that I had with Attorney Gutenkunst regarding the situation, but the statutes require us to set a waiting period for both the wine and beer. Wait, let me rephrase that. The statutes set a waiting period for a temporary wine license at 15 days. They require us to set a waiting period for the beer. We have not ever done that, so we need to do that, and I'm requesting that it just match that 15-day waiting period across the board, and that is so that we have ample time to process the licenses. Even though they're temporary picnic licenses, we do need to do our due diligence, and getting them 3 days ahead of time is not acceptable. And when they're accompanied with a wine license, we can't approve them. So I would appreciate that approval.
I'll move to approve. And Molly, thank you for being so sharp-eyed and noticing these things, because it helps us run better.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I'll second. So I have a question though too. What, do these have to come to the council for approval as well?
They do not any longer.
Okay, gotcha.
Along with the operator's licenses, there was update to the statutes 3 years ago or so,
Okay.
and then we updated our ordinances accordingly that they can be approved by the clerk's office.
Okay, because I recall that being a gating item before, and people were trying to jam stuff on the agenda Friday before the Monday to, and so this,
Yes.
I think this can help keep some sanity up there.
Yes, I
All right,
hope so. Yep.
All right, we had a motion and a second, I believe, or? Yeah,
We did.
Okay.
Tim seconded.
All righty. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. All right, on to the big items for tonight, the Planning Commission. Number 1, Commission Report, Mr. Riker.
It is all right here. We have a few items to go through, and a lot of this, I shouldn't say a lot, almost all of it are things that we've seen before. So these are relatively mature items. The first one we just had the public hearing on, and that was discussed at our last meeting, and I can defer this to Tom, but this was approved unanimously by the Plan Commission in our meeting on May. And this is to change the comprehensive plan and the land use plan map for that parcel on 83 in accordance with the recommendation from the Economic Development Committee report. And this would be a first step. Anything as far as actual use would be contingent upon zoning changes and a subsequent appropriate application for a development, which there are none that I'm aware of.
Correct.
That are So this is to enable something, a proposal to happen that would then take into consideration the impact on the surrounding properties. And before any of that would happen, that would be in conjunction with zoning changes. This be a first step to enable it. I don't know. Want to add any more?
No, that's right, yeah.
But since it came out of the commission I'm on, I'll make a recommendation to follow the Plan Commission's adopted resolution on May 25th for ordinance number 797.
I'll second.
Okay, Matt got it. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes.
Okay, and item 2B, I don't know if we can bring up the map or not, if it's in here, I believe it should be. Just to make sure everyone knows where it is. So this has been a discussion since, might have started in December, but it's at least since January. This has to do with the properties directly across the street on the east side of Highway C from Cushing School, including the cemetery, and then immediately north of that, the property on the corner. And then there was seven or eight other parcels that were in the mix as far as a discussion to possibly change the zoning and land use of those properties to accommodate a transitional area between downtown and the expressway. Due to the public feedback we got over the course of the process since January, this has been reduced to simply changing the land use plan. I believe that's what the comprehensive plan, the land use for the corner parcel, the likely proposal of having a dental office there. And and also to include the change in the land use for the cemetery.
Right, Tim, that's right along Genesee and Poplar Path,
Correct.
right?
Right.
Okay,
Correct.
Gotcha.
For reference, the map is on page 96 of the packet.
I just found it.
Yep.
So this was, I wouldn't use the word embraced, but it was well accepted by the residents along that stretch, as well as the current owner of the property that intends to put a dental office in there, and the residents in the cemetery don't care. Right?
But bum.
We've been getting mileage out of that. All right.
I'm
So-
sorry, does this include the other house that was currently a rental?
Did
So I know
not.
it
So
did
there was some
not.
discussion on the fact that the property owner of the corner parcel, that's Poplar Path North on Genesee,
Right.
also owns the existing residence that's a
Right.
rental property
First one,
currently.
Yeah.
It was deemed that it would be in everyone's best interest that be handled as a separate application if they ever intended to request that be changed.
Okay.
I think they would have liked to just have it swept up in this, but we decided kind of two separate issues. Right now, the city was the initial applicant for this. Since that's very specific to the landowner, we're gonna let them come to us in the future if they want to make that change.
Okay.
More work for them, but it seemed reasonable.
Sorry.
So I'll make a motion to adopt Resolution 2022-17, ordinance number 798, as recommended by the Plan Commission.
I'll
second.
second it.
All right, is there any discussion?
Are we giving
Last
that to-
month, we had a motion approved to really basically request action on both Kelly properties.
We sent it back, yeah, we sent it
We
back
sent
to
it
the
back.
Plan Commission, and
They didn't
we
wanna do
acted
that?
on the one. And we
Yeah.
decided to be, and some of the logic there, like, maybe it said it too fast or blended in with other things, but the city was the initial applicant for this change, for all these properties involved. Some of it was because the cemetery was obviously just zoned incorrectly. The other one was that the Economic Development Committee was a city entity that kind of came forward with this recommendation. And in conjunction with that, we had a proposal from the landowner of those two parcels, with the dental office and the house next to it. With discussion and the objection from the neighbors about changing their properties going north of the residences to this new
Land use?
land use. We decided that the appropriate applicant for that last residence would be the landowner and not the city. Is kind of how, that's the logic that we went through. So the land use will be, what's being proposed right now and the motion on the table is the land use being changed for the cemetery and for the corner parcel for the purposes of accommodating,
Just, there was
if they go
no-
forward with it, a dental office on that corner.
Just the first one.
Does that make sense? And the other one will remain a residential property where there's an existing home.
With the current land use, but if,
That's right. Yeah, so.
And I voted against the overall proposal last month out of respect for the property rights of those 5 homeowners. But out of respect for the owner of the 2 Kelly properties, shouldn't we be acting on both of those?
We can't right now because it's not in front of us.
Yeah,
So that
understood.
that comes from the Plan Commission. I'm
They
I'm
didn't
a
wanna act.
representative, I'm not the voice. I mean, I'm the voice here, but
So the property
was-
owner there was,
Tim, correct me
Is
if
fine
I'm
with
wrong,
this?
but I think part of the rationale is when you look, Mark, you looking at this map right now?
I have it
96?
in my head.
If you look at the parcel, it says
953
957.
and 954.
If you see the parcel that says 957?
Yeah.
That one.
I believe the Plan Commission was trying to preserve a buffer between that property and the dental office,
And
a residential
953.
buffer.
that was also a point that was made, is that would exist. So that's a kind of a separate issue for those homeowners.
Yeah.
That would be an existing residence, that would be a buffer from a change to a business use.
954.
So that it's a different, so it's kind of
rental.
a different fight, is how we viewed it.
Yeah.
As something that seemed perfectly acceptable to everyone involved.
Okay, including the landowner of 953 and 954?
They're 2 different ones.
I think they're here, but I mean,
Yeah.
but I'd say that they were okay with it.
Okay.
But they're the ones involved in the most of the change, right?
Yeah. All right. Thanks.
All right, is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions passes. Okay,
Okay, next part of this is very connected to what we just talked about, and this would be ordinance number 799. And this took, this was not a quick draft. Amy Barrows went through several different iterations of what would make sense to accommodate potential business use in a transition area between the central business district downtown and then the surrounding residential areas, where right now we have several areas where there's homes that are in a business district, and there's areas on the edge that are residential that are business district, but or that are areas around them that could possibly be eyed up for business in the future. And this is a pretty tightly worded proposed zoning district that would put pretty strict conditional uses on such properties that are surrounded by residential and close to downtown. And so this was a use that worked out really, really well for those properties, including the dental office and some other ones that might be around, for something to consider in the future. And it puts a description on something with the work that went in the background into something we can leverage in the future for other proposals at some point. But it'd have to go through the same changes for land use and zoning changes in the future. It's just, it establishes a business district we don't have.
it's for a very limited use right now for actual application, but the planning commission felt that there were other areas potentially where it might apply, and it gives us the flexibility to be able to do that in the future somewhere else.
And this was unanimously approved again. So I'll go ahead and make the motion to approve ordinance number 799 for the new CBD 4 business district to be established.
A second?
I think Mark got it. All right, is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions passes.
This one's more fun. So these are all kind of fun, I guess. So B, 8, what is this, B?
B2D.
B2D. This is the former Seven Seas property, and there's information in the packet, and there's drawings in that. So the applicants are going through a rather deliberate process. It's kind of nice to see there's no mad rush, and it appears that they're doing things very deliberately and with a good plan. And they came to us with almost unprecedented request to approve something that we didn't need to necessarily even be asked. So when you do put aesthetic elements on the top of a building and you exceed the height restrictions, it's already in our ordinance that you can have it done as a part of the site review and appearance review. Okay. They formally asked for it to be noted that it was a height exception, and we quickly gave it to them, because if you look at it, it's kind of a Spartan roof line without any kind of amenities, and they just added some weather vane cupola.
I like the chicken.
And we'll see what the final. Well, this is what was approved. So I mean, I'll make a motion to approve the applicant's request for the height requirement exception for the cupolas and weather vane on 1807 Nagawicka Road.
I'll second, or someone else seconded.
Paul got it.
Okay.
Finally, I got one.
You did it, it was there.
It's a race.
And the follow-up question is, when do they open? And I don't know.
Yeah.
Summer next year is the
But-
best estimate I've got, so.
Okay, so
So we have a motion and a second.
Oh, yeah,
Is there
that's
any discussion?
I hope there's lightning protection on that grounding rod.
well, that's Scott Hussinger's department, their building inspector.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions passes.
Okay, and now item B2E, which is Nagawicka Heights. And this would be the specific implementation plan for the subdivision that was already approved by Planning Commission and us here. I don't know if,
John, do you guys want to come up, or?
but I'll give a little the little background that I have, and that this is, I think our initial presentation on this was late in fourth quarter of last year. And then there's, we had public hearings for the land use change and the zoning change. And we had plenty of public feedback. As always, not all that was embracing the idea that this longtime farm was going to turn into a subdivision, but some of the accommodations that were made took care of some of the objections of some of the neighbors. And primarily it was this recent landscaping update that they did to the plan, going from initial draft to tonight, and that's some screening, and I even got a note from one of the, I thought more significantly impacted neighbors that could use some screening, and he seemed very pleased with the fact that he was getting some extra trees and that. So that's my portion of what to add. Everything else is according to what was initially proposed and had been on the table for the last several months.
Pretty much, we've agreed with everything you've asked for, so.
Tom, do you have anything to add?
I do not.
If you could call it a demand, it was a request to work with staff to create a more robust screening with the appropriate kind of trees in the southeast corner of the property and along some of those older areas where there wasn't going to be necessarily landscaping right from the homeowners.
Right, and we understand.
Yeah.
It's going to be a very high-quality development, and they've stepped up in every way to be accommodating, I think, to the neighbors, even to the extent of improving a horse trail that's been in disarray for many, many years, willing to help us out and get that resolved for the long term. So we appreciate you coming in. We appreciate working with you.
Same here, thank you.
The horse trail, I walked it recently just to kind of understand the area and some of the erosion issues. How far does that go? I know beyond your property, your responsibility is don't have responsibility there, but does it go to there's an area there that's very steep that's eroded. It looks like 2 riverbeds in there. Is that part of the Spheris project, or is that west of their land?
You can answer that, Rob.
Rob Davey, Lake Country Engineering, the project engineer for the job. How familiar are you with the horse path? From where our property ends, there's an electrical box. There's another probably 30 or 40 feet before it kind of opens up into a field. So we're going to go to about the beginning of that field and work our way east to almost to the 90-degree bend.
To the bottom.
There's a tree line there to the south.
About that tree line, maybe a little bit east of that. But wherever we saw some really bad eroding areas, not too far away from our property, we were going to go in and work as long as we were in there, fill them in, seed them, mat them, and hopefully get some vegetation growing.
Yeah, okay. Okay, yeah, I can picture that. And I know beyond that is not your responsibility, but it's somebody's, probably ours. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. So looking for a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve item BE1.
I'll second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes.
And so then, why don't well, Tom can answer questions about our stormwater maintenance agreement, but that comes hand in hand with the fact that they're going to be doing some disruption there. So they have to take care of the stormwater, and it looked pretty similar to all the other ones I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's a standard template, nothing significantly different with this one than our normal template.
All right, well, I'll make a motion to approve this Nagawicca Heights subdivision stormwater maintenance agreement.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes.
And more to what more people can get their arms around is the actual developers agreement, which is in there. There's more language. And I did highlight to someone about the fact that there are hours of operation for the construction, certain hours you can start and end, so that people can have an idea that they don't have carte blanche to move land around at 3 a.m. on a Sunday morning. So there's details in there like that, as well as which paths they're required to maintain until when and all. If you're not familiar with these, it's all in there, and it looks good to me. And it's been reviewed by an attorney, I'm assuming. All right.
Yes.
So I'll make a motion to approve the Nagawicca Heights subdivision developers agreement.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. You are ready to start digging.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Okay, we will move on to B2F.
This is all old news, right? So this is Hawthorne Farms, and we have one of
Come on
our
up, John.
developers here. And this is for their similar thing, the specific implementation plan. And if you recall, they had an approved plan for this phase 2 that included some side-by-side type arrangements, and they came back to us a couple months ago and asked for something very similar to what's on the north side of the road, and that's been received. It was received well by both the buyers as well as the people moving the dirt and the people building them, right?
Yeah.
And so all this information's in the packet about the paths and the stormwater retention pond, and the pavilion as a possible bike station or just hangout spot. I shouldn't say hangout spot, and then the gathering area, a respite, but then the connections to the Red Chapel Court, is that what it's called?
Yes.
And that's all good going. We've got that squared away. We can connect to there. All right, that was a win. I don't think there's any surprises in here at all. I'll make a motion to approve the Hawthorne Farm Properties specific implementation plan for phase 2 as dictated in 8F1.
Second.
Paul. All right, is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes.
And I'm assuming this is a close copy to what our other development agreement with them, but so we need a developer's agreement for phase 2, and I'll make a motion to approve that for Hawthorne Farms phase 2 development as well.
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Now that's the easy way.
I like it. Yeah, they didn't have to carry in any big presentations.
3
All right.
words. That's
It took us a long time to get there, trust me.
Yeah, and I want to thank you guys, staff and mayor, and everybody for coming to terms on this. It was not an easy path, but we're moving along.
Yes, and thank you very much for all the
Great.
good work and the development you'll be doing.
Thank you. We're
Awesome.
excited to get it started.
Good. Thanks, John.
We'll be digging tonight.
Yeah, right. Bye-bye.
Okay, and with that, we've got our regularly scheduled plan commission meeting at the end of the month. With all this other homework, I don't have a big preview of what's coming up, but I believe we
It's busy.
Yeah, it's busy. So one thing that is, if not at the end of the month, that's coming up is a discussion about what might be going on at St. John's. So
What's the date of that meeting?
it's the last Wednesday of June.
Okay.
Next week.
So look for the packet. With that, that's a record for me.
I think it might
It's
be.
a lot of acres.
It was a page and a quarter at least. Okay, we will move on to Lake Welfare Committee. Mr. Price.
Okay, Lake Welfare met on June 8th with 2 primary things we were talking about. One, we set the lake awareness meeting, which we have to do every year. We're going to do it at the Nagawicca Lake Yacht Club again. That's been received pretty well in the past. We're looking at November 7th or 8th. We're still trying to get the agenda with the Yacht Club worked out and with some speakers we're discussing with. But we'll have an agenda set probably for the next meeting. The next thing we were talking about is
November 7th?
September 7th or 8th.
I had November 2.
So Sewer Pack gave us a study that we waited, was it 4 years to get, whatever. But one of the things in the study was a detailed map of issues around the lake with red, green, yellow, as far as how it impacts the lake. So the committee wanted to attack certain, some of those areas that we could address quickly and would be the most effective use of our time. One of the ones we thought would be most effective, there's a drainage culvert that runs just south of Seven Seas. And there's a lot of water comes through there. We have a member who lives right next to that culvert, and she said, you can't believe on a rainy day how much water is coming out of there. So we thought attacking that would be perfect timing, because the people who are running Seven Seas seem to be very, very cooperative in anything the city's asked for. So that might be a good time to work with them, to, whether it's a retaining pond or whatever might come out of that. But there's just a tremendous amount of water shoots down there. And we're trying to address that, and then we'll go on to the next one. So we'll start some discussions with those owners and see where we can go from there, and then get the city involved if they're willing to cooperate. But some of it's on their property, some of it's on the next one. I think it's probably on an easement, but we'll see how that works. So that was it.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, Park and Rec. Mr. Schaefer.
We did our park walk. The commission walked 5 parks with potential areas that were proposed for some improvement. St. John's Plaza, St. John's Park, Cushing Park, Fish Hatchery, Sports Complex, and Fireman's Park. A couple of erosion issues and river access points that we think we have solutions for, but obviously there's we need to get quotes on specifically what that is. There's a couple points where there's erosion. One point near Cushing Park where people are obviously using that as a river access point. It's a nice calm area there that, but it causes vegetation to get washed away, so there's some erosion there. As well as St. John's Plaza, looking at that for potential like kayak type access. So I guess we'll come back with more information, but do we fix that or do we put in steps? I think that we had a good proposal for potentially putting in steps there that would, if it is used as an access point, let's not try and combat that. Erosion, let's make it accommodating to that use. So that's one thing that we're looking at. Fireman's Park, there's some playground equipment that maybe due for some maintenance. So we're looking at solutions there that, not to replace anything, but can we maintain? I think that equipment is 30 years old, somebody said. I'm not sure of the timing, but if it's that old, can we get parts? Can we maintain it? But no big surprises. Those were all things that we knew were potential maintenance needs. And our next meeting's on June 27th.
Sounds good. Mr. Grimmer, I think you and maybe others will be glad to know, very few, if any capital projects. Okay, we'll move on to Public Works. Mr. Grimmer.
Public Works had a meeting June 1st. The highlight, I guess, was DOT is proposing to rehab 7 miles on I-94. They were scheduled for 2025 to complete, but there's an inquiry that Tom received to pull that forward to 2023, and we're subsequently looking for a detour proposal, which Public Works approved. I'd refer you to the minutes for that proposal. Otherwise, a relatively uneventful meeting. Next meeting is July 6th.
Everyone's giving great reviews on Mill Road.
Oh,
It's
like butter.
Apparently it needed it.
I have been over there. Is that done?
The shoulders aren't, but the pavement's
Okay.
done.
Yeah, it is beautiful.
It was a popular item over in your neck of the woods.
It really was. Yep, it's great. Lots
The
of
biking community is very excited.
biking community is out there in force discovering, yep. So,
They don't mind hogging the white line, but when they have to go around a
Crater.
like a big
Yeah.
manhole-sized divot, that's a problem.
And that was done together with our neighbors, so it's a good quality project this time.
yep, good
win. Those never
intergovernmental
happen.
cooperation.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to F, Delahart. Mr. Eicher.
Yeah, so one note here, we haven't had a meeting since our last meeting, but I did get a note from Scott, something that he's our manager. One of the things that I've reported about these different updates over the past 18 months, 2 years. I asked for a summary letter from Foth, the engineers that we were using, and he showed me a draft of it. And my feedback was, it is exactly the kind of draft you'd expect from an engineering firm. And I said, but leave it as it is. We can adapt cover letters to it. But I asked for something that we could share with the different municipalities that are our partners. And so it'll end up in people's hands very shortly. But it's really an FYI as far as the investments that we're putting into the wastewater treatment facility, how we're complying with current environmental regulations that we have, and anticipating future ones. So we're in a really good state as far as our facility, our finances, and no worries. That part of the system is going to work for a long time. So look for a letter coming out soon. It'll probably be something I just bring up here at our next meeting and we put out on the website. And that's all I have for Delhart.
Sounds good, thank you. Okay, Police Commission, Jackie.
No meeting, no report.
I think you have one coming up tomorrow, though?
Nope, we have a meeting on Wednesday.
Wednesday. All right, Library Board, Ms. Henry.
Yes, we had a meeting last week, and I have a couple of notes. So the library welcomed 2 new board members, myself and Courtney. The Waukesha County Library Planning Committee, which our director Stephanie is a member of, and the Waukesha County Board have approved the new Waukesha County Library Services Plan for 2022 through 2026. Changes were made to the county library standards portion of the plan and were endorsed and approved by the library board at their May meeting. The most notable differences include updating benchmarks for material spending and expenditures per capita, among others. And then updating core policies for every library so that everybody's on the same page. Now that the library board has endorsed it, they will agree to implement these changes in the fall. In addition, the other thing is, in addition to the regular email newsletter that goes out on Friday, the library staff has also developed a curated email list for patrons so they can sign up for specific topics that match their interests, so people can find out information more specified to them. And summer programming is in full swing, so there's things for kids, teens, and even adults. So check things out. Yeah, that's great. So that's my report.
Sounds good, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay, we will move on to I, Zoning Board of Appeals, Jackie. Nothing for
No
that?
meeting.
Okay, J, Promotion and Tourism Commission, Mark.
We had no meeting in June. However, it didn't stop us from making some progress. Thanks to DPW for getting up the new banners. I hope you've noticed.
Yeah, they look nice.
Dine Delafield, Shop Delafield, Hike Delafield, Bike Delafield signs downtown and Nagawaki Center. Also, the visitors' guides are done and distributed at restaurants, hotels, select shops around town. So now we move on to the trail map. That's our next project, to revise the trail map. Keep building trails. We'll keep revising the map. Our next meeting is July 12th.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. We'll move on to Lake Country Fire and Rescue Commission. No meeting that I'm aware of. L, Lake Country Fire and Rescue Board, Mr. Grimmer.
The board had a meeting a few days ago on the 15th. revenues and collections are coming in as expected, as our expenses in line with our budget. One item of note, we are having a special session, a special meeting related to a staffing subcommittee that's working through recommendations. That meeting is July 12th at Station 42, our Delafield station, at 5 p.m. Like I've mentioned before, staffing is a challenge for Lake Country Fire and Rescue. Most recently, we've suffered a bit of a setback. We utilize interns quite a bit. We had 10 interns at one time to help support our staffing, and that have of a few issues that I won't get into, that staffing has been about 4 out of those 10 have quit because of a reduction in hours due to a federal ruling that really limited their hours. So the bottom line is that staffing is again on our plate at Lake Country Fire and Rescue, and this subcommittee was developed to address those staffing concerns. So that presentation by them is on July 12th.
Man, who's on the subcommittee?
A town of Delafield representative, Anthony Arbusios. I murdered his name. I apologize, Anthony. And I believe Jerry, and then Chief Mark Hoppe, I believe.
Okay.
H-O-P-P-E.
Yep, thanks.
Jerry,
Jerry.
where's he from?
Jerry is from. there's like 14.
There's a lot of communities.
Yes, he's from Wales, I think.
He's from South.
Wales, Tennessee, one of those.
South Jerry.
It's Jerry.
So, I mean, I'm not at those meetings. I mean, what do you think they're trying to figure out? I mean, in a nutshell.
In a nutshell, they're trying to staff the 4 stations with 3 employees and trying to hire additional staff, part-timers, to fill those shifts that go unfilled. There was a document presented that went through the entirety of the shifts that are requested to help, and it's every day of the week, and here's the shifts where the calls are going out for help. Obviously, this is impacted by the loss of the intern program. Some of the discussion.
Program or just a few interns?
4 interns.
Program still exists. You just
The program still exists.
Yeah,
yes.
okay.
Matt, that was a minimum wage issue, right? That we had to.
It was.
We
There
weren't
was a
compensating them enough.
Exactly. There was a federal ruling that said that we have to pay our interns minimum wage, and they can't work extra. And so that decreased the wages of a lot of these interns, and they sought greener pastures. And I'm not going to predict the debate, but at least in my mind, we've developed the intern program over the years and increased it. It started with 2 to 4, and then we achieved 10. We have I believe our competitive advantage is that we have a niche in our relationships with the college,
Schools.
the high school of health sciences, and the other schools, where we have a real pulse on new graduates looking to get involved with the fire service. And maybe with some extra effort, we can continue to utilize that program, which is a low-cost program for us, to supplement our staffing. Lake Country is recognized as excellent in terms of education, so I wouldn't want city residents to think that they're getting a lesser product with interns, because not me, but they do an excellent job in training and educating these folks from the start, and I have a family member who works there as well, and I can attest to that. So that's kind of the debate, or at least the predicted debate, potentially.
So hiring more full-time?
Part-time.
Part-time, to make up for the interns.
Correct.
Part-time?
Part-time.
Okay. No, the chief has predicted,
I mean, yes.
the chief has predicted,
Go ahead. That's long-term.
Okay,
Yeah.
this
full-time,
is short
but
term.
This is kind of the,
That's probably what I was trying to get at too. Is
Yes.
this more of a long-term thing or more of a short-term? You're saying it's more of a short-term. This
is the short-term fix, but the long-term is
another discussion.
a bigger discussion.
Yeah.
And you've had conversations with Matt, and we've talked about, and I've mentioned the Western Lakes is going through similar challenges. Their referendum, I believe, is in August as well, and they're looking to double their operating budget, primarily for the same concerns that Lake Country Fire and Rescue has.
yeah, it's interesting, Matt talks about the possibility of needing to hire 3 new full-time employees every year for the next 10 years. Conversely, Western Lakes is looking at hiring 33 new full-time employees all at once right now.
Right.
Oh, jeez.
Right.
So, during the merger with some of the newer members of Lake Country Fire and Rescue, was there any kind of handshake or impression or promise that there was going to be enhanced hours at any of the regional stations in the different municipalities that signed up?
I don't recall any handshake or anything.
Okay.
In that
Just
debate.
curious, because I know there was.
Do you or the mayor recall any?
That was a huge point of part of the reason that when Lake Country Fire and Rescue merged together with Neshota and Shaniqua was
Right.
we could get staffing at this one place. And
We can-
as small
yes.
as we were then, that was a challenge already.
Yep, the benefits of the merger are quicker response times, especially for the town, absolutely. For the city as well, on the eastern shore of the lake. Those are absolute advantages. The capital budget is an absolute advantage. You
Right,
only need
yeah.
one ladder truck, et cetera.
I was just curious if there was any, because sometimes there's an impression of local staffing versus response time. They're not always connected. I'm just curious if there was
Well,
any
and
promise.
Our response time is as good as it's ever
know.
been.
Response time
for
is great.
the entirety of the city.
And 95, 97% of our responses are EMS. They're not fire.
Right.
And so, but at the same time, if you are staffed with 2 at a station, you can't, there's decisions that have to be made on how you respond to an unknown situation.
Yeah.
And that can decrease response times.
Right.
And so, yes, this station is the closest, but we only have 2 here, so we're going to have to call in this station over here, and it gets a little hairy. It can get a little hairy.
Sounds good. Thank you very much for that detailed update.
Yep, my pleasure.
Okay, we'll move on to other committees, commissions, and boards. Dear Management Committee, Ms. Henry.
We have not had a meeting since our last meeting, but we meet tomorrow. And a number of things on the agenda.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to 10, unfinished business. A, follow-up discussion and possible action as requested by Mayor Atwell regarding the municipal code, section 2-198A, involving the city council, conduct of deliberations, and presiding officer speaking. I would have gone into this more detailed request or explanation last time, but the last time this was on the agenda, it was only for discussion only, and so I wanted it to be put back on for some action. So what we basically have here is a situation where, I completely 100% agree with Mr. Dean on the basic premise, that our code does say that the mayor should vacate the chair to participate in discussion. After a motion or to make a motion, the mayor and everyone else must follow our codes and ordinances just like any other person in the city of Delafield. But as I often say to citizens, codes and ordinances can be changed if there's a will to do so. When this will exists, we follow the prescribed public processes to do so, have a public discussion, and the votes will dictate whether the change happens or doesn't happen. In this case, the process to change this item in the code is a simple vote of the Common Council to do just that. Based on our prior discussions, the ordinance appears to have been on the books for as long as anyone can remember. But the reality is, prior common councils and mayors have not followed it to the best of anybody else I've talked to's recollections. I'm not personally aware of a single situation in all those years where this has been a problem or would have improved the process or outcome of any of the discussions or votes on any topic. Much like many codes and ordinance on the books, until a complaint is received, Wayne in this case, enforcement and practicality of the specific code section is not seriously researched or acted upon. Based on my experience as mayor, alderperson for over 25 years, and religiously watching city Delafield Common Council meetings, I strongly recommend this Common Council to take action to change the code and remove section 2-198A from the books. Based on my experience, it serves no practical purpose and brings no value to the citizens of Delafield, council members, nor the process we use to govern, given the size of this governing body, and that's important, the size of this governing body. The mayor can speak freely in either case today. The only difference is whether this non-value formality is forced upon by the mayor by the code. I believe the citizens would like to hear what the mayor has to say on various topics without this unnecessary and cumbersome process. So let's move on and spend our time on more productive topics to help move the city of Delafield forward. I ask that you make a motion and vote tonight to remove this section from the code.
Just to clarify, if the council would like to do that, the motion would be to direct staff to draft the ordinance to remove this section of the code, and then we'd bring it back to the next meeting.
So we'd act on it in the next meeting, is what you're saying. So the action to remove it would be next
But
meeting.
the action tonight would be to direct staff to draft the ordinance.
I'd like to make a motion to direct staff to change that
I'll second
section of our
that.
code.
I'll
To-
second that.
To have that section of the code removed?
Yeah.
So I have a first and a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, the reason I ask if we'd act on it tonight is because I think it'd be important that the person who called this out as something of significance be a part of the action, and he's not here. So I think it's appropriate that he be here. And since this allows that to occur regardless, I'm good with that. But otherwise, I would have felt that it wouldn't have been appropriate to act tonight without Alderman Dean here. So.
Just as an extra point, I was, 2 weeks ago, I went to the Government 101 seminar in Madison that new people normally go to. And it was a very good seminar. It was an 8-hour deal on all sorts of government business and how to run this and how to run that. That particular item did come up, and the expert on Robert's rules and all this kind of stuff addressed that, and he said, most cities have dropped that a long time ago. He said, because it's very cumbersome, and you're right, people don't ever do it. So he recommended to go back and said, yeah, I would just take that out of your code, but you'd have to make a change. So I thought that was very interesting and timely.
Yeah, with a group this size, do we need that formality? Anything that hampers free and open discussion from all the experienced minds we have here, let's get rid of barriers rather than add them.
I think my only caution is that the mayor does not have a vote. And I have been on Common Council since my 10th year, and there have been occasions where a mayor, not necessarily Kent, but other mayors who have been very impassioned about a particular topic and engage in a more heated part. They're trying to persuade the council, which I get on the one hand. I get what everyone's saying, but I just want to be careful because we're supposed to be the ones that deliberate. And so I don't think it's onerous and cumbersome to simply, vacate or make a statement, to support or add information. But you want to be careful before you just cut stuff. It was there for a reason. I think we are a small group and we can probably manage it either way. It just makes me a little nervous.
I think as Kent mentioned though, having that there does not stop him from still making those statements. I mean, if the mayor wants to,
right,
he can still step down and do that.
Exactly.
So having that extra layer it doesn't change anything except for adding time and,
Well, it adds seconds, which I don't think is, I think it's moot. I think it's more a question of just saying, I realize that at this point, formally, I want to express an opinion rather than, it's just more of a psychological difference.
but in every, I mean, we're talking every topic, how many times is it a problem versus how many times is it not a problem? We're talking seconds on every one of those issues, so it adds up.
Yeah,
I would rather
don't-
have
yeah,
free
I don't think that,
communication.
yeah, it's been a real problem, but anyway, we can just, whatever.
And just like any, I mean, we've talked about this a couple of times in some other situations. If it has never been a problem, if it becomes a problem, we can always change it back. If it is an issue, if it.
Yeah, there've been times where,
Always edit that
you
back.
know, and there have been times where it has been, in my opinion, that's why Wayne brought it up, where it has, an opinion has been inserted after a motion and a second, and that's the point. It's not every time we talk about anything else, it's just at that point. And they've been fairly big items, so there haven't, just a couple of times, so yeah. We can nuance it, we can trash it, whatever, I'm very conservative about eliminating rules. 33 years teaching, I like my rules.
And also point out that I don't know anyone that's up here. I don't know all of you really well. I know some better than others, but I don't know any of us that are easily influenced on something that we're discussing. I'll have to say that.
That's a good point.
So and so I think that the concern with having this in as a formality is more out of undue influence of the mayor and all his might, crushing somebody's will to swing a vote, right? And I can only remember one time where a mayor's statement in the middle of a deliberation flipped me. It was a complete flip, and the only reason I did it wasn't because Mayor McAleer was intimidating; it's because he was right. And I valued the fact that he brought up what he brought up, and it had to do with employees' salaries and being consistent across everything. And it doesn't happen to me a lot. I mean, I don't buckle very easily, but he was just right. And so having to hand it back and forth, I think we'd tire of the awkwardness really quickly if we actually followed this. But we'll have this again. We'll have this discussion again, right, in 4 weeks. So
I appreciate Jackie's cautious attitude. And I'm going through my mind, okay, so picture a overbearing mayor who wants to make an impassioned speech. He could just do it. Adhering strictly to this rule, he would vacate his chair and then do it.
So,
I think the dynamic would be the
Pretty
same
much the
because
same.
we still know it's the mayor. It's not like, okay, well now, now you're not the mayor. Well, you are, and then when you're
Yeah.
done, you're the chair again. So
Yeah. Gotcha.
it may just be a formality that's not worth it.
Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Abstentions? Passes. Okay, we'll move on to the next item. Mayor's report. I just had two quick things. One Tim kind of already hit on.
Can I just pause for a second? That was Sally had the only name vote.
Yep, I'm the nay.
One correction in the communicator, I had mentioned that the Hendricks Golf Course timing was most likely for July, but that's changed now. The golf course portion of St. John's will be at the Planning Commission at the last meeting in June. So I just wanted to note that correction. And then also, I wanted to thank whoever the anonymous person was that sent me 5 pounds of gummy bears. Thank you very much.
are you asking for more?
You gotta have a conversation.
That should last.
I will be sharing them with the folks in the office. Okay, that's it for Mayor's Report. 12A, discussion possible action as requested by Alderperson Valdy regarding the ideas of separating public hearings from action, the vote on the matter of public hearing.
Yeah, pretty self-explanatory, and this was really in response to the meeting we had last month with the folks on Genesee Street. And my only concern is that we have a lot of single meeting months, and when it can be, I don't really want to say contentious, but just something that, you know, elicits a lot of response from the public and discussion, and it gets to be a very long meeting. And I worry that we don't have enough time to sift through the ideas that might be in the proposal, A, and B, I worry about the rest of the meeting, because we're only human, and human psychology is such that when you look at a really long, beefy agenda and then it's got a couple special orders of business and you're like, okay, how long is this going to go, and can we click this up? And I don't want to shortchange anything, so that's my concern, is that it, you know, for efficiency, I get it. And like tonight, no one came, and how do you know? But my concern is that it just, the once a month meetings then means that it just makes that one meeting very long, because every committee basically has a report, and then everything has to be looked at. So that's my question, and maybe Plan Commission guy would know when we might need to have, because you do have public hearings outside of this.
Yeah, so, yeah, thanks. Yeah, so it applies to here, and I don't know if it applies to any other committees. But I think it'd be impractical to put in a rule that we can't act on a public hearing in the same meeting as just a blanket process. I've got two good examples. One was the tent for the Bible study group at Oakwood Church.
Yeah.
Because it's linked to a conditional use, it requires a public hearing to change. They didn't have anything in their conditional use about outdoor activities, specific to at least a structure or something. Mm-hmm. So they had to go through that conditional use process, which is a public hearing and a change of their conditional use, and it goes through that process at Plan Commission, then comes to here. And we couldn't approve it fast enough in the Plan Commission meeting, and here too. And so I'd be afraid that if we encumbered the process in general across the board with that fact that you couldn't act expedite something so simple like that, we might do two things. One, we'd unduly prolong something reasonable from going through 3 weeknights of somebody coming out to things. Or we might write our conditional uses more broadly to allow certain activities to happen that we otherwise like to catch, like signs or special events and specific hours of operation and things. So I prefer to rely on the discretion, and it's not always perfect, of the council and the Plan Commission to understand that, you know, there's a couple people confused, or this seems like it's being rushed, and more often than not, we don't act if we think there's more information. And it really only takes one person adamant about the request to delay a decision or ask for more information. You may have done it more than others and maybe gotten ignored once or twice, to be honest, in the last 10 years. But most of the time, if there's somebody who's saying, this is too fast, we don't know about this, there's people who aren't here, we've put it off, and that did happen with the group on Genesee Street. To be fair, we did have the public hearing. They missed the process. It was a clear miss. They tried to speak at the end. We reloaded the public hearing. We had the public hearing, but we reloaded the discussion to the next meeting. And we just put it off a month. It was easy. So I get where the intent is. Maybe there's a different way that it's getting done in different municipalities where there's a built-in two-step process at the beginning of the proposal or something of some certain significance, but I don't know how to, I'd like to see a template where that's being done.
Yeah, I mean, very, very simply, I mean, we follow state statute when it comes to these types of situations, as do other municipalities, right? And we do, probably much different than a lot of our fellow municipalities. Where we can, we try to build in extra things to communicate with people, maybe changing the distance or sending out a postcard when we're not required by state statute, but because we know it could be a controversial issue. So we're going to send out the postcard even though we're not required. We've had these discussions over the last year. So I think we really do, while not perfect, just like Tim said, we're trying, right? We're trying to get that engagement, and it's not
Yeah, I was
easy.
thinking more or
Not
less
easy.
about like whether or not we notice, give people notice. I'm thinking more about the process of the length of the meeting when you pair a public hearing, like the short ones, I get that, and you want to, and so you try to do the best you can. I know people do. It was more just a philosophical question about that.
I understand. Are you asking? I'm just because I'm not really understanding what it is that you're asking. Are you asking that we hold public hearings not at our regular meetings at all?
No, I'm not asking that. I'm asking about the idea of like the public. This came to mind because last meeting we had
Right.
in May, we had a lot of people who seemed completely uncomfortable with a proposal that we thought we had communicated well, but putting that public hearing next to a meeting, a common council meeting, made the common council meeting long, and then everything else on the agenda also requires our attention. And I'm concerned.
But what's the solution for that then? That's
That's
my ask.
Yeah, I don't
What is
have
your
one. That's
solution?
why I asked to discuss it.
So Danielle, what
Yeah.
she's proposing is like tonight, we would have held the public hearing that we had,
Yeah.
but not taken action on that until July.
That's what you're asking?
No, I don't think that's what I'm asking
That-
at all.
that's
I'm
what
just
I was
asking
clarifying,
about
'cause I didn't understand what-
the
what-
logic
That's what I
of
thought.
having public hearings at the same time as regular common council meeting, because
What would be the
it makes
alternative then?
have public hearings separate, except in the event that it's a simple, like, procedural thing.
And a lot of the public hearings happen at Plan Commission, so you're
Right, I
proposing
realize that.
additional Plan Commission meetings too then, to accommodate that?
No, God. I'm not trying to be the queen here, I'm just asking a question.
I'll weigh into some. So I know,
Yeah.
here's an example that
Yeah.
could happen. You could have because I really understood it to be not taking action on the public hearing agenda item at the same meeting as the public hearing,
Right.
which there's I see the logic in that for some situations, because that's where somebody may feel like they didn't even listen to me and they acted anyway. And because it doesn't appear that there's dialogue sometimes. And sometimes it appears that there's dialogue that works against the person who's lived here for 40 years, and it works in favor of a developer. Because we may have a zoning change that's on the agenda for a public hearing, and then people talk about how they don't want the zoning changed. And then we sit down and hear a developer's proposal, and we're kind of bantering with them a little bit. Then we vote to change the zoning, and we're moving their proposal ahead, and they're like, why they talk with them and they only listen to me? And so, or just heard me. So in those situations, I feel comfortable saying that my experience on the Plan Commission, that when we felt like that has happened, we've not acted, and we've asked for more information or delayed the decision to a future meeting.
If we truly think we need it.
And even the recent one with that you just cited with Genesee Street, we sent it back to Plan Commission.
We
It's
did.
No, come back with something that addresses these issues, and so I think it works in those situations, and but I don't see it as an issue with I never feel I feel sometimes a little bit like the meeting's gone a little bit long, but I never feel like I'm mentally fatigued to the point I can't make a logical decision because we were here for 3.5 hours because we had a public hearing for 45 minutes first. Some of those gun club ones were pretty nasty, but
I applaud your effort to shorten meetings. It's admirable. But I like that immediate accountability, and I appreciate what Alderman Eicher just said, that yes, we can't comment back on the public hearing, but we can converse with the developer and back and forth, and the impression that it leaves is a negative one. But I think that the example at our last meeting was a great one. We had all this feedback, which maybe didn't move me, but moved me more to the vote that I eventually took, and that immediate accountability I do like the people that you are affecting with your vote are sitting out there. And yes, we've all been called idiots, as we vote and they storm off. But that's part of public service. I don't like being called an idiot, but I do like that immediate accountability that the vote I have to take, I'm looking that person in the eye and having to take it. Not to say that they wouldn't show up the next time, but again, the convenience of only having to show up once.
I got you.
And the only concern I'd have is you go through in a very lengthy meeting, hearing both sides, blah, 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 going on and on and on, and you're fine-tuned knowing what you're going to do. You understand the process. Put it off another month, you go, I forgot half the stuff that's going on. Now you got to rehash and do the thing all over again. So you're kind of doubling your efforts to get to the same spot. And then you'd have the same issue at that meeting, That's the only concern I'd have, because you just kind of have to start all over again. Because I'd forget half of that stuff until you read it and then hash it back and all the questions and kind of doing it twice.
397 pages.
Yeah.
You want to sort of enhance the public interface, the public communication aspect.
Well, I'd like to have 2 meetings a month too, so you see how far I got with that one too. I just like to increase the amount of time people have, the ability to come and just participate, so.
It gives us the opportunity to consider and discuss the ideas and proposals.
Yep, that's it.
Jackie, I do have a concern that you're trying to address, and I'll talk to you about it, and we'll come
Pardon
back.
me?
I do have a concern you're trying to address, and I think that sometimes people think things move too fast. And I'll talk to you about it. I'll talk to you about it, and maybe we can come up with
Something
maybe
else.
the same thing or something close that addresses it, because there are some times where people think like, wow, you changed the land use plan, the zoning, and are approving
Boom,
the beginning
all
step
one
in
meeting,
70 days, because that did happen.
Yeah.
I claimed it could not happen faster than 90, but I did see that we did it in 72 days once. That seems pretty quick. So I'll see if there's. I don't think in those situations it's unreasonable to ask for that.
There were
one
no
extra meeting.
objections in that 70 days.
No, I'm not saying we did it wrong. I'm just saying for some people.
That was very appropriate. That's efficient
hey,
government.
You're right. No, you're right. I do have to answer the other side of the coin where the people are saying, why do you make it take 90 days?
Yeah.
But anyways, I'll talk.
We want to be efficient,
I'm concerned
thoughtful.
that's the same thing, is what I'm saying.
We want to ensure that the public involvement is as easy as possible. The format that we use today, on the other hand, one benefit is sort of the accountability of, if they're here for the hearing and we've got to have our discussion in front of them that day and make our vote, we're very open and very visible to what we're doing. It's not like, okay, we have a hearing and then you go away and then we're going to have another meeting someday and we'll talk about it and vote. And if you want to know what we do, you got to come back. This format, what we do is very transparent to the people who are involved and interested enough to show up for the meeting. I like that aspect of it. Could we use what we did last month with the Genesee Street thing more freely to say, okay, we've had a hearing, but we want more information, or we have a question, or we want to kick it back to Plan Commission. Let's do that, and then we'll come back next month, so that we can do it when it's appropriate and not automatically be burdened by an extra, perhaps month of through time, whether we need it or not.
Well, anything that needs a council approval needs a council approval. So if you don't give it, it either dies or gets sent back.
Yeah.
Right? Those are the three options: move it ahead, send it back for reconsideration, or kill it. And last time we had the option of doing all those three things. We sent it back to Plan Commission. We changed our recommendation.
Brought it back.
We brought it back, and yeah, that cost.
Nobody came.
That cost that extra month. And
Actually, I think the discussion was really thoughtful last month and accommodated awareness because of the presence of the citizens, and it was probably one of the best examples of local government actually working well, in my opinion. I went home and went, dang, that was pretty good.
worked, yeah, system worked.
Yeah,
Yeah, system has worked.
folks did well, and I think it was you who came up with a solution too. So yeah, I mean, it was nice. It was nice to see. There was good discussion. But anyway, and I do want to say one thing, because Kent, I'm always dogging you, but you are so good at explaining to people at citizens' comments that we can't talk. And I think that's really helpful, because I don't care how many times you say it, you have to say it every darn time, because they always forget. And they're like, why aren't they responding? We're like, we can't. So anyway, just wanted to say that.
Thanks. Okay, if we're done with that, it sounded to me like what I heard, Jackie and Tim were going to talk about it, and if needed, you'd bring it up ask to have it brought up on a future agenda item. Okay, we'll move on to 12B, discussion regarding how committee assignments are made, including rationale for movement and removal despite requests to the contrary, as requested by Alderperson Valdy.
I'm a lot of trouble tonight. Okay, in my 10 years on council, I've observed not just myself being moved, but other people who didn't necessarily want to be moved, and I understand that that is the discretion of the mayor. I'm just wondering about the process where in the changes are actually made. I know that, I guess we'll just start there. Like, what do you decide? I know you have a ton of people, and committees are.
Yeah, and my responsibilities are to get a list to the clerk. The clerk, reviews that list for accuracy, for timings and dates, and that I got the right people. It's rather complicated, and it's challenging, frankly. It's definitely gotten better, but it's still a challenging process to make sure we're getting it correct. The last thing we want to do is appoint somebody to something that isn't right and then have to come back and fix it, right? So basically that's my responsibility, is to talk to all those different people, including the council. I get the list to Molly. Molly double checks it, publishes it to the council, and the council confirms it. I mean, that's basically how it works.
Okay, but what is the criteria used to remove people or move people? Is it Bob's been on this committee for 20 years, or Susie's?
Yeah, it's a case-by-case basis that I have with individual discussions with people, and it's the decision that I make.
Okay. So like myself, I was removed even though the library board president asked that I remain.
Okay?
Why?
Yeah, so I take in all things into consideration, and I make the appointments that I do.
There was another member of the board who was also removed without notice. Didn't know she was removed from the library board.
Yeah, I think we went over that once before. She came and spoke with me after that. We had a discussion. But again, I don't really want to get into a lot of details here. As a process I go through, I treat everybody respectfully, and I make the appointments that I do.
Is there a reason that as a person with the second most experience that I don't have a regular committee?
Yeah, so I have to look at all the different people that we have and the different comments that they've made to me, and I've made the appointments that I did, Jackie. I mean,
so there's no
leave it at
payback
that.
for the fact that I can be a pain in your side?
It's a process. So.
Well, it's just that, people who have taken votes that haven't been favored have people who are removed. That's, I don't need to get into the details, just like you don't want to, but there are several people I could name that have been removed. And it's frustrating because there are, we want to encourage citizen participation, but it doesn't happen unless, when people feel not welcome or they're just summarily removed without discussion or warning. It's not the best.
Okay. All right. We will move on to the next item, 12C, discussion possible action on the effect of traffic and noise on the ambience of downtown area, the destruction of city streets, the destruction of brick crosswalks, the concern about traffic volumes, and ideas for improvement as requested by Alderperson Price.
This is kind of a subject near and dear to my heart. I lived downtown for 3 years after buying a condo right across the street here, across from Daybreak. I had a beautiful, nice porch on there, so my wife and I were looking forward to sitting out and enjoying the downtown Delafield. And then we were there for less than a week and go, geez, I never realized how noisy it is down here. And then, Monday through Sunday, on the weekends it's a different thing with recreational vehicles and fewer trucks. But Monday through Friday, it's sand and gravel trucks, it's concrete trucks, it's, long haul truckers. The biggest noise seemed to me is, and still is, sand and gravel operations. Those trucks are extremely heavy, 85,000 to 100,000 pounds. They come up to the sand and gravel operation over here, so they come up, load or unload, and then come back down again. So every truck that comes through comes normally twice. The noise they make is incredible because, as you know, downtown has 3 stop signs. So you stop, accelerate, stop, accelerate, stop, accelerate, and most of them have squeaky brakes, and you have to accelerate, and the smoke comes out the smokestack, so you get a noise factor, you get a dust factor. It's kind of a mess. If you just walk down Main Street here and look at the sidewalks, the red brick, nice crosswalks, many of the bricks are already busted up. The biggest issue it starts with is a concrete collar on both sides that holds the bricks in, and those are busted up, they're repaired, busted up. Then eventually they have to take out the whole collar, put a whole brand new one, replace the bad bricks, and start over again. Most of that issue is because of heavy trucks, not cars. Cars, the weight per tire is, less than 1/10 of what it is for a big truck. Obviously, we have trucks going because they have to go to a construction site or somebody's home or whatever. We're not discussing that. We're discussing just the trucks people go through using Delafield as a corridor through a nice downtown area. We've got the number of people who live down here in apartments and condos in the last 15 years has increased exponentially from when those first came in. Now we've got nice restaurants with tables right along the road. If you're sitting there trying to eat, you can't even talk to the person next to you because the noise can be just deafening. I took a little poll one afternoon just with a yellow legal pad just by parking types of vehicles going back and forth. And I hit 85 trucks within a couple of hours. And that was just a regular Friday afternoon. So the number of trucks coming through here is just amazing. So what I'd like to, some discussions with the police department, they seem to feel it wouldn't be an issue imposing weight limits on this road here in the downtown area, as long as we would come up with something that was easy to administer. Thoughts were like going with a gross vehicle weight off the side of the truck or something that it's right there, it's obvious, and there wouldn't be any issues of having to weigh a truck. One of the cities down the road here actually tried to pull them over and weigh them. Well, that was very, very difficult to do, quite expensive. We're trying to come up with something, something simple. So in order to facilitate discussion among our group, I'd just like to start by making a motion to instruct Tom Hafner and the city attorney to come back to our group with an enforceable regulation that would impose weight limits on trucks running through the town who do not have an intended delivery in Delafield.
I'll second for discussion purposes.
Thank you.
Just for thoroughness, Paul, you said through the town. You should probably say through the city.
Through the city, I'm sorry.
Amend. So a couple questions that I have. It's always be careful what you wish for. If the trucks aren't going through Genesee, where are they going, and who are we pushing off? Is there one big? You talked about sand and gravel trucks. Is that Wolf?
2 big users. There's Wolf
Yeah.
down on Highway 18, and then Signago Concrete, who's actually in the city of Delafield, up on what is that road in Neshota, by the Red Circle Inn.
Yeah, Rasmussen?
No, it's not
Rasmus.
Beddelson. Is it Rasmus?
Rasmus.
Yeah. If you head west there, they're down at the end there.
So they would be technically they'd be excluded.
No.
Because they're city of Delafield, they have business in
So
the
city
city.
of Delafield businesses wouldn't be excluded. I'm talking
anybody
to
would
Paul,
have
I think the
business.
exclusion would be that you couldn't do any through trucking. So if they're gonna come down Highway C and go all the way through, that would be through trucking. But if they have a destination in downtown, if they're coming to the Hendricks construction site, that would be okay.
Or if you're putting in a brand new concrete driveway and they gotta come into your house,
Sure.
fine, you could go to that. But if you're just using this as a corridor to get a little faster to get to I-94 instead of taking 16 or 83. 83 is a state highway kind of built for that. From the sand and gravel operation, if they take a left instead of a right, they would shoot right down to 83 and then up and down to 94 or on 83. Coming this way, depending on where they're going, maybe they pick up a mile, maybe 2 miles, because 83 is only 1 mile from here. So I don't think it would be a real imposition on the trucks, but if you take anybody, if they can get 1 mile closer, they'll take the easy route. And I suppose everybody does. But the ambience of downtown in a nice afternoon is, or a Friday evening, because those trucks in the summertime, they could work till 6 or 7 o'clock at night easily.
And I agree. I agree with you that when you're there for a period of time, having lunch wherever, especially during the week, it's surprising how many trucks are up and down. And yes, it does subtract from the quaintness and ambiance of Delafield and downtown.
I don't know what the total expenses, Tom, as far as, say, over the last 5 years, what it takes to maintain those sidewalks and repair them, and how often you have to do that during the year. When I walked it this afternoon after we met, and go, boy, some of this stuff is in pretty bad shape.
Yeah,
It needs some addressing, and
we've been doing a piecemeal effort on it, just filling things with asphalt, because the true costs that the city's gonna have to address sometime soon, and we're gonna probably wanna have a discussion about whether we wanna stick with real brick crosswalks or if there's better alternatives. But we're probably talking somewhere in the vicinity of $30,000 to $40,000 per crosswalk, and there's 4 crosswalks at each intersection. So we might be talking $500,000 or more to do just Tennessee Street crosswalks.
So what, do you think that there is just off the top of your head, which I know you don't like doing as an engineer and all that, but do you think there is a weight delineation that would segregate out the big offenders, like specifically the gravel trucks?
For sure, yeah. You take away those trucks, and those trucks put a lot of pounding on those concrete ribbons.
I mean, they're going through the city as a matter of cost and convenience for them, and it's coming at a cost and convenience to us.
Exactly.
But we to Matt's point, we'd be pushing them someplace else. I mean, they'd be getting on. I mean, the one negative I'd see, and it's easy to deal with, but it's the on-ramp on 94 East is a short on-ramp for a 70-mile-an-hour road, and following a gravel truck that otherwise would be not in your way. I mean, there's a safety issue there, but I mean, I think it's definitely worth pursuing. If nothing more than take it to the next level beyond the concept.
So what about? Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I was just curious I just, because I don't know at all, do we have the authority to do that, being that it's a county road?
Yeah, we have jurisdiction from I-94 to Oakwood Road,
Okay,
Oakwood Drive.
okay.
So my understanding in looking into this a couple of years ago is there was nothing that would preclude us from doing this. There are some challenges. Because we only have jurisdiction over that segment, you could have trucks on Highway C southbound that all of a sudden get to a no-through trucking sign at Oakwood Drive. And these trucks can't exactly make a U-turn, so it'll be a learning process. Perhaps we would have a month-long transition period or something like that for educational purposes for truckers, things like that. But then just to play devil's advocate, it should be understood that we're part of a regional economy here, and part of that economy is commerce. And these companies we're talking about, Wolf and Zignago, they located here many decades ago, and probably made a decision to locate here based on access to highways and interstates and things like that. So just to play devil's advocate, that's probably something that should be considered in making a decision like this.
Well, have we reached out to those two companies yet?
We have not.
I think that should be part of the process.
That would be part of the process.
And then what about enforcement? Is enforcement realistic? Is that what Chief said? Yes.
As long as you make something easy, that it's black
And
and
that
white.
weight is easily,
By state
ID'd.
law, by the DOT law, all those vehicles, they have to have their gross vehicle weight and empty weight posted. And then they could decide either do it on the empty weight or the gross vehicle weight, whatever. But then the police could say, hey, it says 45,000, our law is 45,000, you're guilty, because your vehicle says it. They can't argue because it's their own vehicle, their own posting.
Yeah.
But by federal law, to keep their license, they have to post it accurately. So they have to get weighed and get a permit that way, and their license is done that way. So there wouldn't be any issue of being incorrect. It's just seeing them and pulling them over.
I'd like to get feedback from those stakeholders, Zignegno and Wolf and anybody else that can be identified.
Yeah.
They're not, and to a different point, they're not agile vehicles. So I mean, the concerns about traffic and the development that's going on, regardless of whether they've been here for 50 years or not, they exacerbate. They're a staple and a problem that would help us if their presence wasn't here during certain times, for sure. Maybe something that comes out of bringing them into the loop as we discuss this is select hours where they might find a time. And it wouldn't do much for the streets, but if they could say certain routes wouldn't go this way during certain times too. If they just took 30% of their traffic away, that'd be a start, maybe. Something. I mean, who knows what would come of it, right?
And I'd like to know from them as well, if it were implemented, where are they going if not through downtown?
I'm sure it's going to be Highway P or Highway 83.
I'm sure it will too,
Yeah.
but I'd want that question asked all the same.
Yep.
Just so it's not through your district or my district or his,
Send them to Pabst Farms.
just fine.
They can go watch a Dock Hounds game.
And they could tell us if they see any issues with that.
The interesting thing on
It's gonna be-
Wolf,
they see
Wolf has their
problems.
own vehicles too, But I'd say of the majority of the vehicles, they're not Wolf vehicles. They're independent guys who go up there to dump in and get, sand and gravel and asphalt and stuff like that. So, I mean, there's, hundreds of vehicles, some of them are theirs, but the rest of them are being drawn to their operation by other companies, which they have little control over, other than getting their business, obviously. But those people could come up 83 and come in the back way, because there's two ways to get to Wolf: come down 83 or come down C.
Mm-hmm.
So you can use either route. They're just taking this one because, whatever reason, it's a little bit shorter. Be interesting to see where those guys are normally coming from and why they seem to take this more than they take 83.
I would venture to guess that they have a significant presence right now on 83 as well.
Yeah.
Just a matter of where they're going, where they're heading north.
Yeah.
How far east, how far west.
The nice thing about 83, there's no nice downtown city sitting on it.
Yeah.
So,
Can you restate the motion? What's the motion that I seconded? I want to make sure.
That's not a good sign.
It's not. It's almost 9 o'clock. It's sundown.
make it 7 o'clock. The motion will be to instruct Tom Hafner and city attorney to come back with an enforceable regulation that would impose weight limits on trucks running through the town.
City.
Through the city, who does not have an intended delivery in Delafield.
And would you be amiable to amend that motion to include directing Public Works Director outreach, as I mentioned before?
No
to
problem.
Significant stakeholders?
Excellent idea.
Okay.
Yeah, because we don't want to do a traffic study.
No.
But you talk to these companies and they're gonna look at the routes and they're gonna go, okay, this works, or have you considered, this is gonna be a problem for us or for you, because they're gonna figure out the alternate routes, and it may or may not be what we're expecting.
Right. Right.
All right. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Okay, we'll move on to D, approval of vouchers, payable report for reporting dates 5/19/2022 to 6/20/2022 in the amount of $207,900.56 for accounts payable and $167,509.50 for payroll.
Move to approve the voucher list.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Okay, reports of city officials, city administrator, Independence Day parade route and security.
Yeah, just a public reminder that the Independence Day parade route is going to be modified this year due to the Hendricks construction. It's going to be starting at the rear of City Hall here, going along Oneida Street to Main Street, and then follow the old route, Main Street to North Lapham Peak Road and to the American Legion. We are, as staff, going to approach the Legion about utilizing that route permanently in the future, because eliminating the Highway C crossing makes things a whole lot easier with regards to securing the route. And then lastly, I just want to mention that we had a discussion at the council last month about parade security, and we were able to take some of that direction that the council gave us. And we had the fire department, police department, and public works department come together, and we've got a good security plan that utilizes our existing resources, and we feel real confident in that. So that's where that's at.
Great, thank you very much. 13B, city clerk.
Notices were mailed. Thus far, in speaking with the assessor, he's only had about 50 appointments scheduled and all seem to be going well. He is optimistic regarding the meetings and being able to reach a resolution with most residents. And then for the, go ahead, that's it for that, unless you have something, anybody else, Kent or Tom?
Nope.
Okay. Any questions from the council members regarding the Board of Review or assessment notice? Okay.
Have you guys been getting many calls or none or?
And had a single call.
One.
Nope. Yep. Couple. Do we?
Not like last time.
I have a question. Is there a, just, I know that it's not final yet, but do we have, based on what the initial assessments went out at, do we have a summary split of residential, commercial, agricultural totals and percentages of property values? And that usually shows up, like, go to our site, you can see the tax roll, and at the bottom it shows that percentage.
So the tax roll is up, and if it's, I believe I know what you're talking about, and it's part of the tax roll every year, so the current,
The assessments are different than the so we've got the 2021 tax roll is listed, but that doesn't show the updated assessments online. Do you know what I'm asking? I'm asking for,
yeah.
what the current assessments are, regardless of whether things get changed, where they came in at in this current form, as far as the split between residential and commercial properties in particular, but then we do other splits in our summary page.
Yeah, we can talk to Cal about making sure we get that and post that on the website.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. It's a spreadsheet.
Yep.
Okay.
Any other questions or requests for additional information on the Board of Review? Okay.
You have another item on here.
Yeah, I was waiting for you to announce the second item, but I will. So for the August 9th, 2022 partisan primary election, absentee ballots are coming tomorrow, and we're hoping to have those mailed out either tomorrow, well, ready to be mailed out tomorrow afternoon and in the mail picked up by Wednesday. So look for those. About 311 going out. And then in-person absentee won't start until 2 weeks prior to the election.
Sounds good. All right. C, City Treasurer, May 2022 Treasurer's Reports in your agenda. D, Council request for future agenda items. If you don't have any now.
I have one. I'd like to discuss a expansion of the tree ordinance that we have on commercial buildings to be expanded to residential, because there is nothing on residential.
Okay. Is there another one?
Can we back up to the treasurer's, to the,
To the Treasurer's report?
yeah, is this capital project summary part of that?
Yes?
There's an item under 2021 electronic poll books. I think there's just a spreadsheet error there.
Just a what?
A spreadsheet error on that line.
Okay.
If we could
We'll look into
look at that 2021 electronic poll books, the figures don't look right.
Okay.
Okay, no other council agendas. Number 14, I'll refer you to correspondence. And then last, we will have number 15, adjournment. Seeing no further business, we are now adjourned at 8:50.